Sam Ansel presents Built from Broken. The story I'm about to tell you is about something deeper than words. It's about how a father's quiet action shaped his son's soul. Not through long speeches, but through one powerful moment, a moment that broke something material to build something eternal. This is how a boy, raised in hardship, became a man of strength, dignity, and legacy. A man whose success didn't come from luck, but from learning what truly matters and turning pain into purpose. I invite you to listen to this as if a good friend were walking beside you, in a place that reminds you of your childhood. Let it settle in. Let it speak to something you may have forgotten. Because sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that change everything. Chapter 1. Chicken, Faith, and Concrete. We lived on the 4th floor of a brick building that smelled like fried oil and hallway bleach. The elevator never worked, and the stairwell had its own language, creaks, echoes, sometimes screams. This was the Bronx in the early 90s. You didn't survive here by accident. You stayed alive by being invisible, or by being feared. My father chose either. He chose integrity. While other men yelled from stoops, cursed from porches, or vanished for days, he came home. Every night. Same time. Steel-toed boots. Quiet steps. Shirt soaked in sweat from the warehouse. He wasn't the type to say much, but when he walked in, everything settled. Like the house knew. He's here. We're safe. My mom made dinner with whatever we had. Some nights it was just rice and beans. But Sundays were sacred. She'd save up all week to buy one chicken, and she'd make it stretch like scripture. Lemon, garlic, herbs she swore made us strong. She'd hum while cooking, like the food itself was a prayer. We'd gather around the table, elbows off, voices low, and eat like kings in a concrete castle. No matter what was happening outside. The street fights, sirens, neighbors screaming, kids throwing bottles. Inside our apartment, there was peace. Because my parents made it so. We had rules. Shoes off at the door. Say, "Yes, sir," and "Yes, ma'am." Don't ever hit your siblings. Don't ever lie. And never, never disrespect someone who gives you their time. Still, the block was rough. Kids cursed like grown men. Mothers fought other mothers on sidewalks. Fathers dragged their sons into other people's business. I saw a man punch his own brother over a pair of stolen rims. And yet, we stayed untouched. Because everyone knew my dad didn't play. He didn't gossip. Didn't borrow. Didn't beg. And most importantly, he minded his house. People respected him, even if they didn't say it. When beef broke out, they'd call him to calm it down. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he walked away. He always said, "I can't fix a man who don't want to be fixed. But I can keep mine clean." We weren't rich. But we were whole. Even as a kid, I could feel the weight of that. We were a family in a place trying to tear families apart. And somehow, my mom's chicken and my dad's silence held us together. That's where it started. Before the shoes. Before the game. Before the lesson that broke me open. It started here. In a small apartment. With the scent of garlic and iron. And a man who came home every day. So his children would know what coming home meant. My father didn't just know basketball. He breathed it. Back when he was a teenager, he'd wake up before the sun and run drills in alleyways. Shoot free throws in empty schoolyards with chain nets. Practice pivots in the hallway of his mother's apartment. He had the height, the form, the hunger. People said he had a shot. But an injury took him out before the dream ever got to stretch its legs. Still, he never let bitterness take over. He stayed close to the game. Watched it. Studied it. He knew every sneaker that had ever touched the hardwood. He could tell a cheap ball from a game ball just by the sound it made when it hit the floor. And more than anything, he noticed. He noticed me. I didn't say it out loud. But he saw the way I stared at other kids' sneakers. Saw me try to dribble with a half-flat rubber ball that had cracks like desert land. Saw me scraping the bottom of my soles just to stop on the court. He never asked. He just watched. Waited. Saved. Then one day, he came home carrying that plastic bag. I was sitting on the couch, tying together the laces of my beat-up shoes, getting ready to head outside. He placed the bag on the table like it was something sacred. Didn't say a word. Just nodded for me to come over. I opened it. Inside was a pair of basketball shoes. Not flashy, not famous, but strong. White body, blue trim, real cushioning. And next to it, a leather ball. Full size. Game weight. I should have lit up. Should have hugged him. Should have said thank you. But instead, I hesitated. Looked at the shoes. They weren't that brand. Not the ones Jamal had. Not the ones Rico bragged about. Not the ones kids in the hallway pointed to like trophies. And in my 10-year-old brain, that meant they weren't good enough. I looked up at him and said, "These ain't the ones." He stared at me. Not mad. Just still. After a few seconds, he asked, "You sure? That shoe right there, real leather, full grip, court built." "I know. I wore these. I played in shoes like this." I shook my head. "But Jamal says those aren't even real ball shoes. His are better. Everyone laughs at these." He paused, nodded slowly, turned around, walked out back. I didn't think anything of it. I figured he was mad, sure, but that he'd cool off. Then he came back holding something. An old metal pipe. He walked past me, silent. Set the ball down on the concrete floor near the kitchen door. And with 3 sharp, heavy hits, he broke it open. Leather split. Air hissed out like a wound. Then, he picked up the shoes. The ones he had probably saved for months to buy. And dragged one across the rough brick wall. The sole peeled back like skin. He slammed the other against the edge of the counter until it cracked. Then he looked at me and said calm as stone, "That's what the world does to what you don't value." And he walked out. I stood there frozen. Didn't say a word. Didn't cry. Not in front of him. I picked up one of the shoes. The torn leather, the shredded lace. And I just held it in my hands. It wasn't until that night, when the lights were off and the house was quiet, that the tears came. I buried my face in the pillow and cried so hard my chest hurt. Not because I was afraid. Not because I lost a ball or some shoes. But because I realized he wasn't trying to hurt me. He was showing me something. Something raw. Something real. Something about pride. About value. About how the world treats people who don't know what they've been given. And even though I couldn't fully explain it then, somewhere inside me, I knew this wasn't about basketball. This was about honor. About truth. And about a man who loved me enough to break what he gave, so I could learn to protect what I'd one day earn. It would take me years to understand what he meant, but even that night, I knew I had done something wrong. I just didn't yet know how deep it would go. The next morning started like any other, but nothing felt the same. My father got up before the sun, like always, drank his black coffee in silence, laced up his boots, grabbed his lunch sack. Same movements. Same rhythm. But something in the air had shifted. He didn't say a word to me. Didn't scold. Didn't remind. Didn't even glance with disappointment. And that was the loudest silence I had ever known. It wasn't just quiet. It was heavy. Like steel cables wrapped around the room. He went to work like nothing had happened. But I sat at the table, staring at my bowl of cereal until it went soggy. For the next few days he said nothing about the shoes. Nothing about the ball. Nothing about my reaction. But every night, when he walked through the door and placed his keys in the metal tray on the counter, the clink echoed like thunder. Like it was asking me, "Did you hear me yet?" I tried to act normal. played outside with my friends, dribbled with a ball someone else left behind, wore the same busted-up sneakers with the sole flapping at the back. But something inside me was different. It wasn't shame exactly. It wasn't guilt. It was something deeper. Like I had turned a corner, but didn't yet know the street name. I started to see it clearer. Those shoes weren't just shoes. That ball wasn't just a ball. They were his story, his time, his effort. And I had thrown it all back at him. He never said it. But I felt it. Every time he walked past me in that calm, unreadable way. Not cold. Not cruel. Just steel. His silence wasn't punishment. It was a mirror. And the longer I sat with it, the more I saw myself inside it. That week, I didn't cry again. But something else started to move inside me. And for the first time, I thought, one day, I want to be as strong as him. Not loud. Not flashy. Just real. And unshakable. Like steel. The court behind our building wasn't much. Just cracked pavement, double rims, and a bent chain-link fence. But for us, it was Madison Square Garden. After what happened, I didn't step on that court for days. Every time I heard the bounce of a ball from my window, I felt a knot twist in my stomach. My friends were out there. Rico with his brand new Jordans. Jamal with his signature headband and matching wristbands. They didn't know what I'd done. But I did. And my busted shoes, they weren't just shoes anymore. They were proof. Proof that I didn't understand what I had. But one afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked down in socks. Rio quiet. No ball, just me. They laughed. Where your shoes at? You forget your feet today? You trying to play or sweep the floor with those socks? I laughed with them. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't want to run anymore. Rico tossed me the ball. Half mocking. But I caught it clean. And that was the first moment I felt it. I can't change what I lost. But I can change what I do now. So I played. Hard. Fast. Focused. Didn't care if my socks tore. Didn't care if the concrete burned. What mattered was the rhythm. The control. The fire that had been lit inside me the night I cried into my pillow. Day after day I showed up. Sometimes with socks. Sometimes barefoot. Sometimes with old sneakers someone else tossed out. And slowly, they stopped laughing. They started saying things like, "Yo, you getting good. You crossed me for real that time. You might actually go somewhere." I didn't smile much. But inside, I started to believe it. Because I wasn't playing to prove anything to them anymore. I was playing to prove something to me. And maybe, to the man who never said another word about the shoes. I was learning what he tried to teach me that day. It's not what you have on your feet. It's what you carry in your mind. The others played for style. I played with purpose. And that, though I didn't know it then, was the beginning of everything. The pain in my soles faded. The shame in my chest began to lift. And in its place, a seed of something unshakable began to grow. By the time I turned 11, people started to notice. The older kids stopped calling me sock boy. Now they said things like, "Pick him first. He's got vision. Don't sleep on him." I had no gear. No proper coach. No fancy drills. Just cracked pavement, bloody heels, and a drive I couldn't explain. I studied everything: footwork, release angles, balance. I watched street legends play on nearby courts, and mimicked their moves until my muscles remembered what my eyes had seen. Then came the tournament. Summer league. Neighborhood teams. Bragging rights for the whole block. Coach from the school came to watch. Said he'd seen me play from his car a few times. And now he wanted me on the roster. I didn't ask how. I just said yes. The games were tough. Rough fouls, no calls, elbows and ribs. But I held my own. Played like I had something ancient burning in me. When we made it to the final, they picked me as the starting point guard. That night before the game, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed replaying every shot in my head. Every screen, every cut. But mostly, I thought of him. My father had never once said he was proud. Never once mentioned the shoes again. But I knew he'd been watching. Quiet. Still. Measuring not my skill, but my character. Then, on the morning of the final game, as I laced up my worn sneakers for one more fight, he walked into the room. Same boots. Same silence. And in his hand, a plastic bag. Same store. Same fold. Same rustle. He placed it on the table. Nodded toward it. I opened it slowly. Inside, the same shoes. White blue trim. Strong, solid, court ready. And the same ball. Leather. Game weight. Perfect bounce. He didn't explain. Didn't apologize. Didn't say, "I forgive you." He just looked me in the eye and said, "Go win." That's all. And I did. I walked onto that court with the shoes I once rejected. And the ball I never got to play with. And I played like I had the whole world in my hands. Fast. Focused. Free. Every pass was sharp. Every shot, true. We won by 4. I hit the last free throw. Held the follow-through just like he used to show me in the hallway mirror. And when the final whistle blew, I didn't run to my teammates. I didn't flex for the crowd. I looked straight to the edge of the court. And he was there. Hands in pockets. Eyes calm. But this time, he nodded. Just once. And that single nod felt louder than any standing ovation. As we walked off the court, some of the kids were still celebrating. But I noticed a man in a blazer talking to the coach. He had a clipboard, a thick watch, and that way of looking that says, he wasn't there by accident. Coach called me over. Said, "This here is Mr. Riley. He scouts for the youth development program." Mr. Riley smiled like he already knew everything about me. Said, "I've been watching you for weeks. You've got something the others don't." I didn't know what to say. But I nodded. Maybe for the first time in my life. I believed someone when they said I was special. 2 days later, he came back with paperwork. Said he didn't want to risk another scout swooping in. Said he could get me into the national youth system. And to sweeten the deal, there'd be a house. A real one. Not an apartment over a noisy street. But a place with a yard. My mom cried when she heard. But my dad just sat still, as always. Arms crossed. Quiet. Watching. Mr. Riley asked whose name the house should go under. Without even thinking, I said, "Put it in my father's name." He looked at me funny. I was just a kid. Most kids would have put it under their own. But I said it again. He gave me everything. I wanted to be his. That moment stayed with me. Because that was the first time I felt like I was doing something for him. Not just because of him. After that, everything moved fast. They flew me out for training camps. I made the national team for my age group. 13, 14, 15. Every year, I wore that jersey like armor. Representing more than a country. I was representing him. And her. My whole family. That old kitchen table. Those Sunday chicken dinners. That silence that forged me. In every post-game interview, when they asked who I dedicated the win to, I never changed the answer. My parents. My family. The blessing they gave me through who they were. I wasn't born with wealth. Or fame. Or even proper shoes. But I was raised by people who showed me that real value starts where the noise ends. In silence, in sacrifice, in love without words. And that's why I never lost sight. No matter how high I rose. My feet always remembered the pavement where it all began. By the time I turned 32, I had it all. A house in the hills. A wife who knew every chapter of my journey. A career that made me a household name. I was the face of Dolly, New York's pride and power on the court. Captain of the U.S. Dream Team. Olympic gold. Finals MVP. Endorsements. Shoes with my name stitched on the side, Corey Bennett. But for all the lights, the fans, the trophies, the moment that stayed burned in my memory was a man who never once raised his voice, but taught me everything through silence, sacrifice, and steel. Michael. My father. The first house I ever gave him was when I was just a teenager, after I signed my youth contract. But now, this time, I gave him one he could grow old in. A real place to rest, to reflect, to smile. I placed the keys in his hands myself. No agent, no press, just us, man to man, son to father. He looked at them quietly, let them sit in his palm for a long moment, then gave me that slow, steady nod I knew so well. That night, we sat outside under the stars. Just me and him. No cameras. No sneakers squeaking on hardwood. And I finally asked the question I had carried for over 20 years. Why'd you do it, Dad? Why'd you smash the shoes, the ball, everything? He didn't answer right away. Just leaned back, took in the sky, and said, because I saw something in you the world would try to kill. And I had to make sure it didn't die in our living room first. Then he looked at me, full on. Eyes steady. Voice like iron. That day, I wasn't breaking things. I was building you. I needed you to feel the cost of carelessness, so you'd grow into a man who never wasted a gift again. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Everything inside me went still, like the part of the court right before the final free throw. And then, just weeks later, my wife came to me with a soft smile and the kind of news that rewrites your heartbeat. We're having a boy. She asked what we should name him. I didn't even blink. Michael, I said. His name is going to be Michael. Not after me. Not after fame. Not for image. But after the man who raised me right, without needing the world to see it. And so, when Corey Bennett Jr. was born, he didn't carry my name. He carried his grandfather's, Michael Bennett. So that every time I hold my son, I hold the legacy of the man who broke the shoes I didn't deserve, and made me into the man who would one day earn the right to give them back. The night before the championship game, I slipped away. No entourage. No cameras. No press passes or fan meetups. Just me. And a set of keys I had kept for over 20 years. I drove alone through the Bronx. The streets were quieter than I remembered. Some buildings had new paint, some were still broken in the same old ways. But when I pulled up to that school gym, the one with the cracked bleachers and crooked rims, my chest tightened. I had called ahead, told the janitor I needed an hour. He remembered me. The barefoot kid, right? I smiled. Something like that. He let me in and locked the door behind me. No lights. Just the red glow of the exit sign and a few dusty beams from the street lamps outside. I walked across the floor. My shoes made that familiar hollow echo. But I remembered when it was just socks. Or skin. I sat on the middle of the court. Right where I made that pass in the Summer League final. The pass that started it all. And I let the silence fill me. I thought of my mother. Her humming in the kitchen. Her fingers pulling apart chicken bones, always making sure I got the biggest piece. I thought of my brothers and sister, passing the ball with me in the hallway, shouting out fake play-by-plays. And I thought of my father, Michael, the shoes, the pipe, the silence, the nod, the gift, the second chance, the legacy. And then, I stood up, unlaced the shoes I was wearing, my signature line, and left them under the old bench. Not as a trophy, not as a symbol, just as a reminder that before the crowds and the lights, before the banners and the deals, before Team USA, Before Dolly, before my son, there was this place. There was this floor. And there was a boy who played with nothing but fire in his chest and a lesson in his soul. I walked out barefoot. Because some steps are better taken, feeling every inch of where you've been. The hospital room was quiet. The lights were low. Monitors beeped softly like distant drums, steady and calm. My wife was resting, exhausted, glowing, and in my arms, wrapped in a white blanket with one tiny hand sticking out, was my son, Michael. He blinked at me like he already knew everything. And I held him the way I once held that first broken basketball. Gently, carefully, withal. I whispered his name aloud. Michael Bennett. Not senior, not junior. Just Michael. And in that moment I felt it. This name, passed from a man of few words and steel-bound integrity, was no longer just a name. It was a map, a mirror, a shield, and a promise. My father had carried it with quiet strength. Through narrow hallways, late shifts, and impossible decisions, he carved that name into the world without applause. And now I was handing it to someone who didn't even know how to walk yet, but would one day have to learn how to stand for something. As I looked down at my son, I thought of all the things I could buy him, all the comforts, all the choices. But deep down, I knew what mattered most. Not the shoes, not the ball, not the house, but the way he learns to see them. The way he learns to understand love when it looks like sacrifice. The way he learns to speak with actions before words. That's what the name Michael carries now. Not just my father's story, not just mine, but something even greater. A legacy of knowing what matters, and protecting it at all costs. I kissed his forehead, held him close, and whispered, "You don't have to be the best, but you have to be real. Always real. That's what your name means now." And in that silence, as the morning light began to rise through the blinds, I knew the game was far from over. But the story had come full circle. From concrete to hardwood. From broken shoes to golden medals. From father to son to Michael. Again. The house was quiet, but filled with a kind of light no lamp could offer. My father, Michael, sat in his favorite chair. The old leather one with cracked arms and the smell of 1,000 quiet nights. In his lap, wrapped in soft flannel, was the newest bearer of his name, little Michael, his grandson, my son. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the boy with a gaze deeper than memory, ran his fingers along the baby's soft cheek, then looked up at me, and he smiled. The real one. The one that showed his age, his truth, his peace. "He's perfect," he said, barely above a whisper. "You did good, son." I knelt beside him. Watched the two Michaels, one arriving, one preparing to go. And I knew something sacred was happening right in front of me. He rocked the child slowly, let a tear fall, and whispered something I couldn't hear. A week later, he was gone. Peacefully. In his sleep. No pain. Just stillness. We had expected it. He had been slowing down for months. His body fragile, but his will as steady as ever. We didn't cry like the world cries. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because we knew. He made it. He had stayed long enough to place the future in his arms. To hand over the legacy not in words, but in presence. In one final embrace. The night after his funeral, I had a dream. In it, I saw a man I'd only known from pictures. My grandfather. My father's father. He stood in a field of golden light, smiling, and he said, "Michael wasn't supposed to stay this long. His time was meant to end years ago. But heaven waits for those with work still left on earth." I listened, stunned. "He stayed," he continued, "because his mission was to raise you to be the man the world needed. and to place that child in your arms with love still burning in his own. That was the task. And he completed it with grace. Then he opened his arms wide and added, "Now he walks the path prepared for those who love with no need for recognition. He walks freely, into joy, into rest. And one day, you'll walk there too." When I woke up, the air was still, and the first rays of sunlight were peeking through the window. My son stirred in his crib. I walked over, picked him up, and whispered, "You carry a name that traveled through fire, through silence, through tears and victories. Your grandfather was a quiet giant, and now, you carry his strength, not to prove anything, but to live with truth." And in that morning light, I knew something that few people ever get to feel. That a man can live a quiet life, never seek fame, never chase applause, and still fulfill the most sacred purpose there is: to leave the world better through the ones you raised. And so this story ends, not with a trophy, not with a crowd, but with a baby sleeping in peace, and a man finally at rest, knowing his love made everything possible. Michael. Always Michael. Now forever. If this story made you feel happy, or even brought a tear to your eye, maybe you should consider listening to the most healing story I've ever lived. A story that helped me understand my life as a whole, to the point where I began writing stories to uplift the human spirit, and turned it into work that benefits others. And it all began with a simple inspiration. The idea that drinking water could be sacred, that this ordinary act could heal the mind and the soul, could bring abundance to everything and everyone around me. We all drink water. The difference is, I started drinking it with intention. I started believing the water could heal me. And from that belief, I created something. A simple way to turn something ordinary into transformation. That's how I built a method. A method that doesn't just change how you feel inside, but lets you see the change happening outside. From day one, you'll grow a plant using the same water we all drink, just charged with intention. And every single day, that plant will reflect the shift taking place within you. And during each of the 21 days of the method, we'll explore a new way to understand water and meditate healing through it. That's what I'm offering. That's what's waiting in the method, for those who are ready. You'll find it in the first link in the description. Or maybe not yet, because the link will only appear once this channel reaches the number of subscribers needed to activate it, so that our egregore becomes even stronger. But if the link is already there, maybe that's your sign. The universe telling you, you're ready. Not next year. Not someday. You're ready now.